fast you were going?
What? How fast you were going?
I don't know. 10?
8.
Be advised, this is an explicit podcast. If you're easily offended, get your panties twisted into a knot. Leave now. Run in your safe space. Get your little cloth for your tears. All the opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and his guest and do not reflect the opinions of any local or government agency. Welcome to Motor Cop Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Iceman. We do have a guest today. I'm going to introduce him in a second. I got to get this housekeeping out the way, and I definitely need to shout out the Patreons because they help me pay the bills, help me take some of my overhead away. Of course, this is not a Wednesday episode, so we're only going to do the crew members. So we got Mr. Hoppy Hobson, our truck driving friend, probably on the road listening to us. We have Mr. Z Palmer. We have Miss Lawrence Stimson. We have Roy Spalding, not Roy with a P, but Roy with an S. And then we have Miss JoJo, our favorite girl from Down Under. We have Miss Kaylee Norris. We have Natasha A., our girl from up at Washington State. And we have the OG Patreon, Melissa Holstein. Y'all know Christmas coming up. If you want a cigar, good premium cigar, or if you want to buy your husband a cigar, or if you want to buy your boyfriend a cigar, which you shouldn't have, but some of y'all do, go to mypatriotcigar.com and put in promo code MotorCop15. Get 15% off your order. And also, if you order $100 more, you will get free shipping. You're also supporting United States small businessman. So go check them out. They're very good cigars, and get you some. Or you can ship them to Holstera. He would appreciate it. And go like and subscribe. Join the Patreon if you want Patreon-only episodes, pictures, videos I put out. Go join the Clubhouse page. It's in the bottom. It'll be in the descriptions. It's a private group. Don't cost nothing. Just answer some questions, and I'll let you in. Other than that, we're going to jump right into the interview. I have met him on Facebook. He's the officer next door in his Facebook page. Y'all know some of y'all may follow him. He's got a real big following, but we're going to get with him and start. We don't know what we're going to talk about. It ought to be interesting, though. So welcome, Mr. Officer Next Door.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, we appreciate it.
Hey, it's only the second podcast I've ever been on, so I don't really promote it per se that I'll come on these, but if someone hears this, I'm always down to help someone out and talk.
And I'm always
happy to be here.
And I'm always asking, because like I said before, my hardest thing actually is getting cops or former cops even to come on podcasts, for me anyway. I don't know if because they think I'm crazy or what, because I know they got some other podcasts, they get like people all the time, and I'm like, I ask, and but actually it's doing pretty good. I actually have another interview later this evening, so we're going to stack them up, and I love that.
I'm just curious, are they not responding, or are they just saying no?
I have some that'll respond, so let me think about it, or I have some that just don't respond at all. You'd be surprised how many people won't even respond. I have met some, I use TikTok also, even though it's not my favorite app because of the Chinese and stuff, but I've met some good cops that I've interviewed on here off of TikTok. I've sent messages and stuff. Motor Cop for Life I met on TikTok. He's up north also. I mean, this dude's hardcore. Even though he rides a Beamer, I'll give him that. He's better than me because this dude rides in the snow. You ain't gonna catch the Iceman in the ice. You might catch me in the ice box, but you're not gonna catch me driving in the snow because that dude's hardcore. But he's a great guy, and I'm not
cool.
So you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a former Dallas police officer, which pretty obvious if you follow my page. So basically, the Officer Next Door page actually started as a blog. It started out actually when I left the Dallas Police Department, and the reason why, obviously, I think a lot of people don't realize. Cops can't talk a lot of times about things going on when they're current police officers out of fear of, retribution if they say the wrong thing or whatever. So So long and the short of it is, after I actually left the police department, I moved out to Hawaii and had a little bit of resentment and anger about things that transpired on 7/7, July 7, 2016, where 5 of my colleagues were killed in an ambush.
Yes.
That really just kind of changed my mindset. So anyway, what ended up happening is it was pretty apparent I had a lot of pent up emotions and things to say about stuff. And long story short, I started writing articles. And naturally, as starting a podcast or writing articles, a blog, whatever the case may be, you need some way to distribute, your material. And so that's why I started a Facebook page and kind of morphed in that just because Facebook is long form and people that follow me, and you're going to find out here I am rambling already. I'm long-winded, and most of these law enforcement topics aren't, simple, right? Like, there's multiple layers. It doesn't really matter what topic you talk about. It's not normally going to be as succinct as what, 120 or 240 characters that Twitter allowed. So anyway, that's how my Facebook page kind of started. I got kind of tired of putting together articles, and I was looking at the analytics, and it was pretty apparent that people weren't interested in reading articles because it's too long, so they don't read it. And so I just kind of got rid of the blog, even though I had some success there. People would just look at the photo that I chose in the headline, and then they would jump in the comments, and I'm like, good grief, you clearly didn't read the article. I
learned real quick a lot of stuff is about titles and headlines.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse y'all, everybody excuse me, y'all know that's Duke the dog. So,
yeah, what's up, Duke?
Yeah.
I kicked my office assistants out for this recording, so they're out in the living room. They're probably angry at me right now, but so that's how I kind of got started, and Facebook just kind of took off, and I just decided, you know what, I'll just focus on the Facebook page, and I try to post on there and have fun and interact with people. If there's something going on that I feel like talking about that's police related, I'll try to go on there. But I've even found that to be problematic, right? Because if you put again, like you talked recently about, I was looking at your podcast, you're talking about the Tampa chief getting pulled over on her golf cart and she resigned, whatever. There's so many layers to that. Like I could, if I make a comment about it in 2022, you have to have a qualifier with everything, right? Like, if you advocate for the fact that it's okay that she was given discretion, then people are going to come over the top and say, well, you don't believe in accountability. I'm like, well, no, I believe in accountability, but let's be real. This is a person driving a golf cart without proper tags, not a DWI, an assault, a theft, or a felony.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like I said on it, I said this deputy or police officer I think he was a deputy. All right, mm-hmm. I'm a deputy. Okay, I'm a traffic cop. I love to write tickets. Where he was at, and he knew exactly. He knew where they came out of and everything. People from that subdivision always probably do that. And like I said, I guess I just everybody kind of knows what some of my mantras are on here. I'm like, F your feelings, because that's how if somebody wants to come at me, because like I said, my podcast is, and everybody. But I'll talk to somebody about it because I believe everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Absolutely.
And if somebody disagrees with me, we can talk about it. Just don't holler at me, because then I'm going to be defensive. But it's like, I'm sure there's some people and other law enforcement people out there also that disagree with me when I said, come on. It happens every single day.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, from what I had somebody come on in the comments, I don't know how credible, whatever, from that area, said they believe that they made a comment that police department sheriff's office has got kind of a beef. So, because my thing is, nobody would even know about the stop. That cop, that deputy stopped her, went and told somebody, and they pulled that footage.
Yep.
They just random them out right there. So, she wasn't, like I said, she wasn't rude, and she wasn't, she wasn't disrespectful. She was very nice, especially for a chief of her standing. A lot of those people got God complexes.
Right.
I said, I don't know how you feel about it. I just feel like they made way bigger. They wanted her gone for another reason, and this was her excuse.
Sure. Well, I guess my opinion is like most things in life, the multiple things can be true at once. And that's where we get in trouble, in my opinion, these days. Maybe she was a little cringy. If your opinion is the way she said something, maybe you can let me go today or whatever. And some people cringe at that. But like you said, I think it was y'all that said that McDonald's workers get free cheeseburgers, right? You know,
Exactly.
that's kind of a perk of the job. But here's the thing, and people will balk at that. So here comes the 2022 qualifier. Here comes the qualifier, y'all. I let people go all the time as a police officer. Gangbangers, thugs, good people, bad people, white people, didn't matter. Black people, didn't matter. Of all, rich, poor. I let people go all the time. And even more so without cameras. I can say this now. I'm not, you know, people would have warrants, minor warrants. I worked in Dallas. I didn't take them to jail for tickets out. I didn't have time for that because the booking process is ridiculous. And I had to figure out what was the best use of my time, my resources, and is this what I really want to do with the rest of my shift? Taking someone to jail because they didn't pay a stop sign ticket? No, not in Dallas.
Well,
maybe in small towns, if you're real hard up on taking people to jail for unpaid tickets, that's your thing. But
Well, some of those small towns, you know, that's their revenue.
I get that, and I have a problem with that.
Well, I do too. No, I do too. Just like I disagree with every type of electronic ticket devices they have, red light, speed, all that stuff.
Yeah,
if you don't, if you don't have you don't have a physical body police officer standing there issuing that ticket, I don't believe in it, because
I agree.
all that everybody's like, oh, it's a deterrent. No, it's not. It's a moneymaker, because the camera system, did it stop you from doing that? No. If you're speeding, did it stop you from speeding? No, you're still speeding. You just get a ticket later. You don't even know you're getting. That does not deter you. If I pull you over and physically give you a ticket, I done stopped you from doing that act, which a lot of people's like, oh, yeah, just making money. No, I feel like it. Let's say I stop somebody for doing 20 miles an hour speed limit. Okay. A lot of times I will knock it down depending on their attitude, because it'll save them money. Okay.
Sure.
And I do that all the time. I'll knock it back, depending on their attitude. But if I feel like this, I'm about to just save that person's life 2 miles up the road. Who knows, they wouldn't have crashed. Something would have happened.
Yeah.
We never know, which is a good thing.
Yep.
Now, the next time they go through there, and this is what I try to explain to people, the next time you come through this part of this road, I guarantee you're going to, it's no problem. You're 99% of the time, you're going to slow down. You say, I got a ticket right here and I don't want another one.
Right.
The ticket's not because I work for a sheriff's office. We make very like $1 a ticket, believe it or not. So they don't, tell you the truth, my boss don't say, man, you got to go ahead and write some more tickets. I could pull 20 people over there and give them a warning, and he's not going to say a word about it because they don't make money off of it. The DA, the judges, and the public defenders make the money off the tickets.
Yeah,
I just do it to change your behavior. It's almost like getting in trouble as a child. That's how I think of it. When you're a kid, if you got your hand popped, you're not going to touch that again, right?
Right.
Most of the time.
I can say in full disclosure, in 12 and a half years in Dallas, I am not kidding. I wrote one speeding ticket, and honestly, if that fella or girl, I don't remember who it was.
Wow.
No bullshit. If they had challenged it, they would have won, because I wasn't even certified to run the stupid radar gun, but I had to do it to get off training. And when you're on training, you got to do everything once, right? You got to answer a shooting, you got to answer a murder, you got to do a rape, you got to write a ticket for speeding.
Maybe in some of those big areas. Some of the little areas I work, if you can't get off training until you get a rape, you might be out for a couple of years.
I hear you, and see, and that's one of the great things about these podcasts, and that's when I might start. I've been saying this for a while. Then I'll start my own podcast. Anyway, that's the thing about, again, multiple things being true at once, and the nuance to law enforcement, right? Like, the difference between your experience and agencies in the small parts of town, the rural agencies in Dallas. So I always speak from a position of my lived experience, and I forget and don't realize that, it was almost 2 years from the time I got hired to the time I was able to go out on the streets by myself. It was almost 2 years of training, academy training, FTO training, where I had an experienced officer grading me. And then even after I got off FTO, they made us ride with an experienced officer, not graded or anything. I wasn't going to get, whatever. You get my point. I wasn't being trained or graded, but I had to ride with an experienced officer called Little T for 3 additional months.
Shadowing.
Yep. So, you always hear these anti-police clowns come out here and, well, all you need is this, and that's why y'all suck, is because you're not trained enough and this and that. And here's the thing. I will never disagree that the more training is better. Training is always good, one form, fashion, or another. You likely will learn something, and so on. However, you can train the best SWAT guy in the world, can make a mistake. And that doesn't, again, here's the 2022 qualifier. That doesn't negate accountability, but it's true. We can train till we're blue in the face and we're still only as good as what we were trained to do, the resources we have, and caveat, the command staff lets you be.
Yep.
Right?
Because you got some departments, that can't afford the training, or some,
Exactly.
or some just. I've seen some departments throughout my career. They're just not big into training. My main department, I did 23 and a half years with. I will say this, and when I started out, it was a very small agency, very small, and it's a medium size now for this area. It's a pretty nice size agency. I mean, they got a helicopter and everything, and yeah,
fancy.
out here, it is. I mean, you don't have a lot of departments in Louisiana besides state police that have helicopters.
Yeah,
but because when I started, I actually started my reserve time in like 1993. No, I'm about to freak you out here.
I was 10.
I hope you. No, I'm just hoping you're sitting down. I started as a reserve. Okay. I bought my own gun and duty belt. All they gave me was a uniform. Okay. I rode with a full-time guy. I worked for the DOC. I'd been through corrections, but ain't nothing like law enforcement. Nothing against the correction guy. It's a hard job, but it's not like enforcing the law. And I rode with a full-time guy for about 200 or 250 hours, I think, somewhere's up in there. And he looked at we didn't have rank back then yet, supervisor and deputies, that was it, and sheriff and stuff up above. He looked at the supervisor and he said, is he good? And he's like, yep, he knows the job. I was like, all right. And I was a reserve. I worked for free. I was in a car by myself.
Oh, man. That's wild.
10A working. Now, 2 years later, I got hired, okay, because I was actually putting in full-time hours as a reserve. But the opening come up, I got hired on. This how it was back, like I said, and this is 1995.
Yeah.
They already knew who I was. I'd been putting in, I've been working my butt off there for free. And had an opening come up, I filled out my application. It was one piece of paper, front and back.
Jeez Louise.
The chief deputy called me, which is right under the sheriff, the number 2 guy. He called me up and called me in the office. He said, when can you start? Because I already knew who I was. I said, start such and such. He said, all right, here's your keys. This is going to be your number. Go down to, I'm not going to say her name. Go down here, get your paperwork filled out. And this is your shift you're going to go on 2 days. And I was at work. And down here, you can do a year on the road before you have to go to the academy. So
that's insane.
So now
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
That's Louisiana.
Bonkers.
I know it's Louisiana, but
that needs to change.
Most of the guys that, like, when we have new guys like that, they're riding with somebody. They don't just go out by themselves before they go to the academy. Good. But like I said, this has been in the 90s. So,
yeah, no, I hear you.
So now I'm full time or street cop, and I go to the academy. Almost in 96. I go through academy. I think academy wasn't but like maybe 2 months long at the time. Yeah. Graduated academy. So I graduated academy, came back out. It was a small department. Because I'll be honest, when I first started in law enforcement, I was making $895 a month before taxes.
Youch.
Yeah. In the 90s. So, and I was making more money working for the state and quit.
That's funny. I can remember, so I graduated the academy, or I should say I started the academy in 2005. And I remember fresh out of college, I actually finished my college degree while in the academy, but they didn't know that because apparently that was against the rules. You weren't supposed to, because if you failed the written test twice, you got booted. You lost your job.
That was fired. That was just like us too. If you were in the academy and you failed 2 tests, or you failed 1 test, they made it retake it. If you failed it again, you were out. Mm-hmm. If you failed to qualify with your weapon, you were out.
Yep.
You failed physical. You did not pass the final PT test, you were out.
Well, that wasn't the case for me. I won't get into all that. There was some nonsense going on in Dallas, and we won't need to go down that rabbit hole. But things have changed. Anyway, my story that I was headed to was I was obviously coming out of college, 22 years old. Came to Dallas, didn't know what I was getting into, but I was excited. And anyway, my point is, my first paycheck was just a hair take home, just a hair over $1,000, and I was like, holy shit, it has 4 digits. I'm rich. Like, I was thrilled.
You're rolling.
I had never had a paycheck that had 4 digits before. So yeah, I went to work as a Dallas officer in 05. I was making just over $1,000 a paycheck in the academy. And I was thrilled.
That
I
every
was
2
pumped.
weeks or?
Yep, every 2 weeks. So I was pumped. $2,000 a month take home. Now that's after all the government stole all the rest of it, and the pension took its part and all the rest. So
yeah.
Yep.
Like,
But
I don't know who FICA is, but I don't like them.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, and just real quick note on that, all the haters out there, I like to always address them like haphazardly. They're always in the back. They don't live free rent in my mind. I love cutting against their nonsense. Cops don't pay into Social Security. So people forget that. I think they don't. And I'm real big and I'm into finance now. And that's what I do now. But people forget that most officers, we don't pay into Social Security. So our pension's it. Like, we don't come out of the police profession and then call Social Security office and say, how much you giving me?
Yep,
0.
That's true.
Right? People forget that. And they're always, oh, you and your... Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there for the people that don't know what they're talking about.
I worked in high school and, some jobs before that where I paid a little bit. I got to think from Social Security. I think, when I'm like 65, I would get like $200 a month or something. It won't even exist by that time. But
no, it won't.
But we pay, like I said, we pay into a retirement fund, which is to me way better than Social Security is. Period. Yeah. But right. I thought you were going here, but I didn't. What I was going to say is, I love the people that like say, "I'll pay your salary." Well, okay. Guess what, motherfucker? So do I. I pay taxes too. So I'm paying part of my own damn salary.
And I don't even like paying my own salary.
Exactly.
I hate paying taxes.
Exactly.
So we're both pissed.
Exactly.
Shit.
But I love them.
That's
people.
the other thing. It cracks me up because I think, a lot of people think that hey, bootlicker and all that nonsense. And it's like, what's funny is the libertarians love to hate on cops and the government. But the funny thing is there's more libertarian minded police officers than they tend to realize. And we work for the government. We know how jacked up that is. We're like, hello, we live it. We know they're low bid, do more with less and constantly, screwing over the people that are working for them in a sense. So anyway, the point being is just people got us all wrong. And it's just funny. It all comes from a place of ignorance and or arrogance or a combination thereof.
Like you said, people with cops and stuff, marijuana is not legalized here. I don't know if it's legal where you are, but it's not legal here. But they decriminalized it a lot. Basically, you just get a ticket as long as you don't have like a trunk full of this shit. And but even before that, when I could like just arrest you for a joint or a roach or something, I didn't do that. I was like, I wouldn't let them keep it, which I still don't let them keep it because you still can't have it. But I didn't even write them a ticket for it. I'm like, all right,
same.
Look, if you're gonna, I've arrested people on felony drug stuff, but like that, I would look at the kids. I'm like, most of them are younger too, not all of them, but I'm like, look, I don't care if you smoke weed, just don't do it in your car. I could smell it when I was walking up,
Right.
And it's like, but a lot of them are like, oh. It's like, yeah, look, the cop's not pulling you out your car and stomping on you saying, where's the weed?
Right.
Because I've told, especially now, I'll have people act a certain way. And I'm like, just calm down. Well, I don't want to, I say, is my hand anywhere near my gun? No. I said, do I look nervous? Have I been rude? No. I said, then calm down. I said, don't believe all the rhetoric on the news. It's not true. They have bad cops, just like they have bad everything else. But the number of bad cops is very, very minute. Probably not even probably less than 1%. I
agree.
So
no, well, that's what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about discretion. Going back to that Tampa incident, is full disclosure, I was undercover for 3 years in narcotics and vice and different things. So I used to tell people I probably threw out more weed than I actually seized just because of those situations. And that's the thing, like the truth of the matter, y'all, if you're listening to this, most cops want to give people breaks, especially if it makes sense. At least I did. I didn't go to work looking for a fight because that's just exhausting and God forbid I lose, which probably would. I don't want to be tired, sweaty. it's way more advisable and fun for me if you just turn around, put your hands behind your back, and we laugh and bullshit on the way to the jailhouse because you have a warrant that I didn't give it to you. It was your fault, right? Like,
yeah, she showed up for court.
Yeah, or no, I mean, I didn't do all that. Very rarely did I mess around with small tickets. So my point being is, if you had a warrant out for aggravated robbery, I didn't put that on you. That wasn't my fault, but I'm sure as shit not going to let you go. So, hey, we're headed to the jailhouse one way or another. And, you know, we've all heard these stories. You can run and you'll go to jail tired. You can fight and, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, this just these nonsensical notions that like people just looking for it. And anyway, that all said, there are definitely things that are on video where officers make mistakes and they are excessive in their use of force and they should be handled accordingly. But I certainly never went looking for it. But anyway, back to the discretion thing. Yeah, I threw out more little bags or roaches of weed or joints or nonsense back before body cameras. See, people don't understand that. As much as I understand a lot, luckily I never had to wear one. I always had the camera in the car, but we didn't quite get to that point. I left about 2018, 2019, just before body cameras became pretty prevalent. And, you know, what people, I don't think the general public understands is I can't take a joint, throw it on the ground on camera or a crack pipe and destroy evidence. I can't that now. But we could do that back in the day and no one knew about it. No one cared. So it's like, hey, you can't have it both ways, y'all. And going back to that Tampa thing, you look at these comments on Facebook and it's like, all the people, well, she deserves to be held accountable. I'm like, first of all, she wasn't even driving.
No, she wasn't even driving.
Her husband was driving a freaking golf cart. And so what I want to ask that citizen
what cop don't identify themselves?
Well, and that's just it too.
Probably had a gun on her. She probably had a gun on her.
Right. Well, hopefully. And at the end of the day, here's what I did when I got pulled over. I would hand them my driver's license and my city ID, which was my Dallas Police Department city. And it said, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I would maybe just given on the situation, I'll just say, just let you know, I have my duty weapon with me. That's what
I do. Like, hey, I got my duty. I have my duty weapon in here with me because they got some nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some. They have some nervous cops out there that probably shouldn't be doing the job because they're a little nervous. They should go be a crossing guard or something. But you got some that are jumpy. But I'll let them know. Hey, I have my duty weapon in here, and I'm not gonna beat around the bush. That's just a sly way to say when I say duty weapon, that means I'm a cop.
Yep. You know, well, again, I'd hand them my city ID, so clearly they knew, and more importantly, that they knew I legally had a gun with me.
Yeah.
And if you give me discretion and you let me go, awesome. But let's also keep in mind, I never got pulled over hammer drunk. I never got pulled over after being hammer drunk in a wreck, or I should say detained after a wreck. So this is just I was speeding or I ran a stop or whatever. Yep. So. But what I don't understand is, so we live in a world now, let me understand this, Facebook warriors and keyboard warriors. We live in a world now where you want to break I'm not a cop anymore, where you get pulled over, you want grace and a warning. But if we give one to our fellow folks, again, this is only pertaining to low-level traffic offenses, you're upset about it?
Yeah, you want to break if I pull you over for speeding. But Lord forbid I give another cop a break for it.
DWI, no excuse. We have Uber, we have Lyft. Make a plan, do something. I hate it.
I've never been pulled over drunk. I've never, only thing I've ever been pulled over for was speeding. Right, one of the times I got pulled over for speeding,
I think
I was doing 6 miles an hour over speed limit.
Oh God,
6. It was this. I don't. He got kicked out of the parish, but it was a trooper, and he pulled me over. And he walked up, and he's like, "You were doing, I think I was doing like 51 and a 45." Okay, I would not stop nobody. That's bullshit. And I'm
carry the one.
I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, I said, well, look, just let you know I work for the sheriff. I was in my parish now. I was in my jurisdiction. I said, I'm just let you know I'm work for the sheriff's office. And he says, well, I guess you think you can just do it. I'm like, hold up a minute, buddy. Hold up. I was only like a 4-year cop at the time. I was really young. I said, hold up, buddy. I said, I'm not going to sit here and take an ass chewing from you. Either write the ticket or let me go. One of the two. That's the only two options. Write the ticket, let me go. But I'm not going to sit here and take an ass chewing do what you got to do. And I just shut up after that. We handed me my shit and I drove off. But, I wasn't the only other law enforcement person he pulled that with. And it got back to our sheriff, who then called the head of the state police. And I think he got shipped to a place called what I guess would be Alaska and state trooper area or something like that. Because the sheriff told the commander, said, I don't want him in my parish no more. He's an asshole.
What we did with officers like that in Dallas, we sent them to the auto pound, the property room, dispatch, or one of those. Basically, you were punished, and you didn't get to really have a whole lot of direct contact with the public. You know what I don't understand is why there's these random feuds between. Because don't get me wrong, there were departments around Dallas that we seemingly had quote beef with, which just is purely asinine to me, but whatever. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either. I will say I have been pulled over by DPS, Texas troopers. One time, look, funny little story. We went up to Chicago to play hockey, myself and some mostly not police officers. And so because I was the cop on the way home, they're like, hey, you got to drive because, if you get pulled over, hopefully you can go faster and we won't get a ticket. Well, that wasn't really my intention. And I was driving a 16 passenger van. So obviously those things only go so fast or whatever. But anyway, I was coming in from Oklahoma. We were just back into Texas. And there was a crazy story that I might as well tell it. So we were I was sleeping, getting prepared to drive the second leg from Chicago. And we were somewhere in Illinois. And I kid you not, I'm in the very back of this van trying to lay down, get some rest. And all of a sudden I hear all sorts of swearing and oh shits, and everyone's holding on. Apparently some dude in a Honda Civic was driving through cornfields, literally came Dukes of Hazzard style over the embankment, literally flew in front of our van, slow motion style, and then crashed and went into the median and continued to drive on. And the dude driving was just shitting a brick because, you just don't expect that driving down the highway. So anyway, that was wild. So anyway, I start driving. We're coming into Oklahoma or into Texas from Oklahoma. And sure as shit, there's a hill or whatever. And I got pulled over. I was going 75 and I think it dropped down to 65 or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I get lit up. Trooper walks up. There's 16 of us goofballs or more, hockey players in this van. And he was cool as hell. I've never had a bad experience ever. I don't know if I was just lucky or what, but trooper, small town agency, whatever, motor cops even. I always got scared when motorcycle people pulled me over because I was like, oh shit. Because sometimes they're doing the damn ticket as they walk up to your door. I'm like, oh shit, hold on.
I don't do that. I always worry.
Yeah, man, I was worried. I got only one time I ever got pulled over. It's actually a very popular police department, Southlake, Texas. They have a great social media presence, and I actually know the guy that loosely I worked with him. He was a former Dell. Anyway, I won't put his business out there, but never had a bad experience. But you know what? Probably because I wasn't an asshole.
Well,
just saying.
I've written 2 cops in my career. And,
no shit.
But neither one of them identified themselves.
Oh, well,
if
that's
you
their
don't
own fault.
identify yourself, because one of them, the first one, I got called into the office by a captain, and he's like, "You wrote this Baton Rouge City cop a ticket." I'm like, "No, I didn't." He's like, "Yeah, you did." I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "I usually don't. I'll say I don't care. I usually don't write cops. I don't like writing nurses. I don't like writing doctors. Okay, those are my 3 pretty much. Oh, I've written a nurse because if you have a bad attitude,
teacher, any good people.
Well, a lot of teachers, I've written some of them but they were crazy. That's fine. but he's
anyway. I'll elaborate. Go ahead.
He called. He said the name, and I looked. I said, "Yeah, I wrote him." He said, "Well, he's bad." I said, "Well, he never identified himself." He said, "What?" I said, "Well, what he did is he handed me his driver's license and his commission card, his police ID, but he had it directly under his driver's license, and I never flipped it over to look at the back because I had no reason to. So the way I was holding it, I never realized I had 2 cards in my hand." So,
okay.
So he called the guy when I was in there. He said, "Did you ever physically tell him?" He's like, "No." "Did you ever see him physically look?" Because I was standing there the whole time. "Did he look at your ID?" He said, "Nope." He said, "Well, how in the hell was he supposed to know?" So then another time, I actually wrote a jailer which this guy's a motor cop now, because we just had this discussion because I had totally forgot what he looked like because he was way younger. He's actually a motorcycle cop now. We were working LSU stuff and we were talking. And he's like, "You don't remember writing me a ticket?" I'm like, no. And he's like, "Yeah," because he was working. He was a jailer at the jail, and I pulled him over. Well, he had his badge hanging from his rearview mirror, but the way it was facing, I didn't see the badge. And so I wrote him a ticket. I said, "You dumbass should have told me who you were, shouldn't you?" So.
Yeah. Well, let me back up. Let me 2022 qualifies my new freaking theme lately. Here's the way I approached everything. Just for full disclosure, I didn't have a freaking list of who I'd give breaks to or not. I gave breaks to people with good attitudes that were polite, were maybe remorseful, and not to say like I needed that, but if they were, for example, pull them over for running a stoplight, or hey, your tags are out, and they're, I'm sorry, you know what, I know I have no excuse. I'm sorry about it. I've been meaning to, but life happens. I'm like, I'm human. Okay, I got you. Shoot, I've let. Oh shit, I need to pay my registration and update.
Yeah.
Like that happens, right? Like life happens. So but what I'll tell you for sure, who I wrote was one time. I'll never forget this. There was a high profile. Go figure. Dallas had a shitload of those. Good, bad, and otherwise. There was an officer, and this was a bad one, or perceived bad. If you remember back in the day, an officer pulled over a Houston Texan football player that apparently he lit him up, and they were on the way to the hospital because the NFL player's wife's mom was dying of cancer or something to that effect. And they put their hazards on and they kept driving. And then they ended up getting to the hospital. And then there was a big to-do because they'd driven a good, I don't know how long. I don't want to get fact checked. Good grief. This is just something else. I can't even tell stories and worry about getting, anyway. So it became a big to-do, and he made a few mistakes, and he definitely was a little overzealous, I think, in the end. Anyway, the point being is after that happened, I made a traffic stop. And of course, the officer happened to be Caucasian, and the people involved were not. And so it was made a big deal. There was race involved, even though that was never actually brought up or talked about, whatever. Anyway, you get the point, right?
Oh, yeah.
So unrelated to that, I'm just doing my normal job. This is maybe a week or two later of that incident being in the news, and I make a traffic stop. It was for a taillight out. Okay, so two things on that. You can't dispute that. That's not a judgment call. It's not subjective. Either it's freaking out or it isn't. And here's the other thing. Once again, human, me, I understand there's a good chance the person doesn't know their freaking taillight's out. And that was my intention.
Yeah, usually when I pull people over for stuff like that, I'm like, to let them know, because how often do you see the back of your own car? You don't.
Bingo.
And I'll pull people over. It's like, hey, dude, I just want to let you know you got a brake light out, or this ain't working, It's like,
so that was bingo. Exactly. And that was my intention. So exactly. So I walk up, and ended up being a lady, and she had a daughter or something in the car, and I had a partner with me. So he obviously was walking up to the passenger side, and this is how the traffic stop went. I walk up again, stopped for a taillight out, fully under the belief the driver had no idea. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? My name's Officer So-and-so with the Dallas Police Department. And that's about as far as I got. And it was, you're a racist. You're stopping me because but mind you, I forgot too. I'm pretty sure it was nighttime. It was, I can't remember but I know for a fact, because I worked third shift or third watch. So 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., the majority of the shift, not all, but it was later in the shift. So anyway, I had every intention of just walking up going, hey, let you know your taillight's out, check them for murder, run them real quick, make sure they ain't wanted for no crazy felonies. And then my full intention was to let them go.
Yep. Have a nice night. Be careful.
Yep. Oh, hey, go get it fixed so you don't get rear-ended, that kind of thing, right? Like, the whole, what's that movie? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Can't think of it. The girl, Bridesmaids, where the dude keeps telling the chick, fix your taillights, you're going to get rear-ended. Anyway.
I don't think I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I had to watch it with my wife. It's a good little comedy. I'm a comedy guy. I like to watch comedies.
I love comedies, but my wife despises them, so I don't get to watch them.
Oh, dear Lord. Anyway, well, we won't get into that. So she gives me the whole racist card, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, here we go. Writing tickets now. Because, and here's the thing. And you know this, right? What's most likely going to happen? She'll complain and say I was racist and I MF'd her and I did all these things. And I think you and I actually talked off air about, or maybe it was you, that it's always the stops that when you get accused of those things and you don't write a ticket.
It's the one you gave a break to. They call and
you give them a break. They complain on you, and then you have to go to internal affairs. And they're like, "Well, how come you didn't write them a ticket?" I was like,
"Because I was being nice.
I was trying to give them a break, and yet they complained, which I don't understand. So anyway, that's just a perfect example of how But here's the thing: there are hundreds of gangbangers in Dallas. If they knew who I was, and in fact, I know one knows my name for sure, but I think he finally caught enough cases that he's actually in the penitentiary. He and I were on a first name basis. I was up in a different part of town in Dallas called Greenville Avenue, where all the bars and restaurants were. And I was out with friends, and this dude was out there, and he called me, "Hey, officer, come here." And "Hey, what's up?" And I went up, talked to him. He was in a wheelchair. He's well known in South Dallas. He was a drug dealer. He actually, get this is a fun story. He's in a wheelchair, and he was a prolific, I'm not making this shit up. You can Google it. He was a prolific safe burglar and breaking into pharmacies to steal drugs, pharmaceutical drugs.
As long as they had handicap accessibility.
I believe the term for that is ableist.
I don't know what it is. It's like, I went to sue this place. I wasn't able to rob them because they didn't have a wheelchair around.
So the way that worked is he was actually just the mastermind behind it all. He had his little minions, but he would be there, and and what was even more crazy is I would pull him over on a regular basis, legal for legitimate reasons, hauling ass. And he didn't have use of his legs, and he would drive like a freaking crazy man in like South Dallas.
Stick or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He was a character. But we were on a first, and here's the thing. This is the funny thing, and I don't think people understand this. Most thugs, I use that term with term and endearment, right? Like I'm a pig and they're a thug, and I'm a donut eater and they're a gangbanger, whatever. It don't much matter. But he's a human being at the end of the day. He's good. He was a polite thug, gang member, the whole nine, dope dealer. He did it all. Anything he could do to make money illegally, he was into it, including breaking into pharmacies and safes and so on and so forth. But here's the deal. We had mutual respect. He never MF'd me. He never got mad when I took him to jail. It was, "Hey, what's up, officer so-and-so? I understand. I got more. It's cool. You're doing your job. I'm the mouse. You're the cat. It's cool.
You caught me this time."
Yeah. And here's the thing. He knew 99% of the time he was getting away with other shit. He didn't care, But I think the public has this weird, every time you deal with someone, it's like a bad interaction. And that actually is proven true when you ask people, how many times do you think a, quote, unarmed suspect or a black man or Hispanic or what, it doesn't even matter. How many times is an unarmed person shot and killed by the police? They'll say, on a daily basis. You ask a general citizen that, you'll be astounded.
Yeah, they'll be like
2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 100.
It's crazy.
You look at the statistics. I think I say law enforcement kills about 1,000. There's 1,000 usually, according to the Washington Post, which is no right-wing bastion of a publication, right? They've been starting tracking it after Ferguson. And it's weird because here's the thing. It's almost uniform. Every year, it's about 1,000 people are shot and killed by police. 99% or more are very clearly justified. A very small percentage, they're identified or classified as unarmed. However, that might mean that they tried to reach and grab the officer's gun, or they took the taser from them, or they had a car that they were in for whatever reason they did. Anyway, the point being is 99% of these encounters, and even with the criminal element, we're not talking about normal tax-paying nurses, doctors, people with driver's licenses. By the way, that was what I was going to say. In Dallas, if I pulled you over and you had a driver's license, you were way ahead of the game. 50-60% of the people I pulled over, maybe more, didn't even have a driver's license, or hell, even any form of ID on them. And then I'd lecture them, and then they'd get pissed. And the only reason for that was, and you probably know where I'm going with this, is if you get in a wreck and killed and you don't got ID on you, how am I supposed to know who you are and tell your family?
I tell people that because I actually had one time that somebody didn't have a driver's license on them, and they were mangled. I mean, they were like ground meat, and it was a kid. I say a kid. He was in his 19, 20 something years old. He sat in the freezer for weeks before we lucked out and found some family because we didn't know. We couldn't even tell what he looked like. We couldn't put a picture of him out because there wasn't enough of his face left to put out, and we couldn't identify him. And he was in somebody else's car.
Yeah. But they think we're just assholes, just with an axe to grind, and we're always out there just to hammer people. And again, it just all goes back to the whole narrative that's pushed these days, is that cops are just nothing but, wanting to tax people and cause money and just cause grief. And it's like, and look, I can't speak. There are definitely officers that do things I don't agree with. And there's probably officers that don't agree with me. And just as a quick note, I don't intend to ever speak for law enforcement on my page that I run. I give my opinion based on my own lived experience, my own lived, law enforcement experience, and my own opinion. And if officers disagree with me, like you said too, I love a good debate.
Yep.
I love to talk. Let's sit down, have a glass of bourbon. I live in Kentucky now. I'll give you a really good glass of bourbon and let's chat. Let's talk about it. Let's hash it out. I want to hear your counterpoints because that's where you grow. And that's how we can, actually have some dialogue, and maybe you'll learn something. I'll probably learn a whole lot, and everybody's better for the wear. But in the world we're in today, it's I'm wrong, you're right. Cops are bad. All cops are bad because that officer over there did something shitty. So by virtue of that, all of them are bad. And it's so funny to me because, I'll never defend a bad police. And here's the other thing. A question I like to pose to people is, what good comes from bad cops? Do they make your job easier? You're an active police officer right now. When you see somebody on the news doing something stupid as an officer,
I'm like, wow.
Does that make your job better?
It makes it harder.
Or harder? Okay. So, and that goes right back to my ticket story about where, again, this officer did something involving a high profile Houston Texan NFL player. And we can all agree that he maybe didn't handle that situation properly. But here's the other side of that coin. There's always two sides to the coin. And once again, this is just a never ending theme. I apologize. Just because you acknowledge the other side of the coin doesn't mean you're justifying the wrong that they may have done. And what I mean by that is he may have made a mistake, but at the end of the day, or at the bottom line, I had countless traffic stops where people would take forever to pull over. I had countless traffic stops where someone would pull into a driveway of a home and pretend that they live there. And in fact, here, I'll tell a quick story. South Dallas, right by the state. My beat was primarily right by the Fair Park state, where the State Fair Texas is held. So if anyone that actually listens to this ever goes to the State Fair Texas, just know, do not park outside of the State Fair. It is ghetto and dangerous all around that MFer. Okay. I've had to answer so many calls. My beat used to be right next to the State Fair, and these poor people would come out, and they're from BFE, Texas, sweet people, and they'd come out in their cars on blocks or whatever. And their, tires are gone. Their car is just trash. And I'm like, you parked in literally the worst neighborhood pound for pound in Dallas. And because you wanted to save $10 on parking. So don't do that. Anyway, I digress. Now I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Yeah. No. So anyway, at the end of the day, I worked in these just terrible neighborhoods or whatever, but I always give people breaks. I really can't remember where I was going with that. Damn. I shouldn't go on tangents.
We were on traffic stops and stuff.
Traffic stops and stuff. Well, yeah. So anyway, going back to the whole giving people a break or whatever, that's what I want to do. But I forget where I was going with that. Golly, I'm sorry. It always made me laugh because, these poor people would come and they'd go to the State Fair of Texas and they just didn't know what they were getting into in these neighborhoods. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. I had a brain fart. My apologies. Maybe it's the bourbon.
It happened. Well, I'll tell you something funny that happened today. As everybody knows, cops are naturally nosy. I overheard, I could hear somebody conversation. I think they were talking to their brother or something like that. And this girl said, "I'm not bringing you to work. I got other stuff to do." And I could hear her arguing, on the phone. And I just looked at her. I said, "I'll bring him to work." The girl said, "Hey, this she knows my name, so she called me by my first name." She said, "Well, Iceman will bring you to work." And now he's on the phone, can't see me. I never met this guy, and he's like, "I don't know that N word." And So,
Oh dear.
well, these black people. So, but that's what he said. And I looked there and said, I said, who's he talking to? I'm a cracker. Well, she about spit her drink out all over the place because I was like, hey, who's he talking to like that?
Oh man.
It's like, yeah, but it was quite funny. I mean, because I guess they wasn't expecting it to come out my mouth, but it's like, but it's just, hey, I get it all the time when we're talking about pulling people over. You pulled me over because I was black. I'm like, I clocked you with a LiDAR at about 800 feet away at 78 miles an hour, and you have 5% illegal tint on your car. I couldn't tell what color you were when I was walking up to it. So, I did not. I'm like, just give me information. And a lot of times by the time I get back, I don't play into the whole, stuff like that. Sometimes I'll get them to change their attitude. So,
right. Well, and I think where I was going with that is I was talking about, these bad cops, it doesn't make anything better. And I don't know how I deviated, but I asked you the question, when officers do something wrong, how does that benefit you?
Yeah, right? You just make the job twice as hard.
So this weird notion that there's so people conflate the issue of the thin blue line. They seem to think that there's this veil of silence, and maybe back in the day there was, and there's the whole snitches. It's funny because there's such a weird correlation and a lot of similarities between like the street, the gangbangers and the thugs that we used to deal with, and they have a code, right? Don't snitch, right? And then officers kind of the same. That's why we get accused of being the biggest gang and blah blah blah. But that's changed. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, everything's on video. And again, if you're a bad, dirty cop, I hate your ass. I want you to go. I could care less if you go to prison and go F off. I could care less. You don't do me any good. And I just wish I could shout that from the mountaintops. But here's the thing. It wouldn't matter because, the ignorant people just want to hate. They get in their little echo chambers and, the Black Lives Matter and all these people hate. Cops just want to hurt people. But again, I worked in maybe this is where I was going. Well, I'll know when I listen back to this, I'll remember where I was going. But the beat that I worked was, the demographic, just the sheer racial makeup of the beat that I was in right next to Fair Park was probably well over 80-90% black. So if I pulled you over, that you were more than likely not going to be, you were a mind. That's just who I was exposed to. That's the neighborhood I worked in.
Where I work at, Paris, is predominantly black. White people, minority there. So
I mean, a Hispanic and very few white folks. And if I pulled you over and you were a white dude from a suburb, I was like, you're either lost or you're here, or
you're behind.
And I know this from being undercover. Yeah. So hey, I'll spit some knowledge to some these people that think they know how the criminal element works. As a white undercover officer, I'd go into a predominantly black neighborhood, Hispanic neighborhood, wherever, it didn't matter. If I also did vice, right? So I picked up prostitutes all throughout Dallas. And here's the thing. They would see me driving around, my Minnesota-born, white as paper ass, driving my goofy butt around this. They knew I was either lost or looking for some trouble. That's just the fact of the matter. Because here's why. They would run to my car. They were like, there's a mark. I'll make some money on this guy. He either wants dope or something I'm selling, if it was a girl or vice versa, right? And here's the thing. And that's true. Here's why I know that's true. I would pull there's a notorious car wash on Martin Luther King Boulevard in South Dallas, not right down the street from Fair Park. Not a neighborhood where folks like myself that are Caucasian persuasion frequent. I would pull in there and they basically threw crack in my car because they knew I was there for that. They knew it. They knew I wasn't lost. They knew I had a purpose, and it wasn't to wash my freaking car. No one washed the car there. The cars weren't being washed at that car wash. It was a dope freaking enterprise at that car wash. Anyway, my point is, but the cool part of it is that going back to that goofball that I dealt with and knew on a first name basis, there were countless of those, and we had mutual respect. People knew that I was the cat, they were the mouse, and we treated each other with a certain level of respect. And there were countless. We had a gang officer, Norm Smith, who was a gang officer, big, huge. They called him Big Russian. He was shot and killed on January 6, 2009, actually. And there's just one of those random dates that I remember. I remember I was actually at a murder scene, and when the call came out that there was an officer down, it was on a different substation. So technically I guess I could have responded, but back then I would have probably gotten in trouble for leaving my division anyway, but I was at a murder scene, so I couldn't. But my point being is he was a gang officer, and when he passed and got killed, there were countless gang members at his funeral. But yet you're going to hear the news and listen to the narratives of the news and think that kind of respect doesn't exist. It's like this true us against them, when it really isn't. Even the gang members, we have a mutual respect. The good cops that are in the neighborhoods that are, interacting with people, good, bad, or otherwise. And I say good, bad, or otherwise, meaning not every interaction's good, right? Sometimes you're making an arrest, sometimes you're responding to a murder, whatever. But tragedy or not, there's mutual respect. And I just don't think people understand that. And it's unfortunate.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you remember, because it's almost kind of like on the lines of this movie. It's a movie, so of course it's sensationalized some, but it's almost like go watch the old movie Colors.
Right.
I don't know if you familiar or whatever.
Man,
Sean
I think I watched it.
Sean
once.
Penn's
It was
in
a long
it, and
time
I'm
ago.
not a big fan of Sean Penn, but it's called Colors. It's about street gangs in California, Los Angeles, and you have the young rookie cop that has no respect in the gang unit, and you have the old salty cop. He knows some of these gangbangers by first name. They have some respect for him, and to a certain amount and everything.
Knows his mama.
Yeah,
everything.
They had this guy before I got back in motors. When I was working patrol, I worked in a very rural area. They had this one guy. I don't even know his real name. But anyway, I just called him Bud. One time he looked at me and says, "Why you always call me Bud?" He said, "That's not my name." I said, "Because every time I'm around you, you reek of weed." Like I said, you smell like weed so much. I'm pretty sure in the morning when you say you have a bowl of weed instead of a bowl of cereal. Okay.
Right.
And he started laughing because this dude, do you know though, when somebody poisoned their dog and their kids were upset because I got to know him and his wife or whoever she was so well that when somebody poisoned their dog, they called me to come over there and help them calm their kids down. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's stuff like that does happen. People don't realize it. I mean, I'm not saying the dude was selling weed. I doubt. I mean, if he did, he wasn't making a lot because he probably smoked too much of it. But like
whatever.
I said, but we lived totally different lifestyles. Put it that way. But I got to know him, his wife, and his two small children, which I thought were just adorable. I went and ate with them at school sometimes when they were at lunch and stuff like that.
Well, and I think here's the thing is like you make a good point is we would have these bonds and these relationships, but here's what isn't happening for obvious reasons. People like that aren't taken to Facebook or grabbing a megaphone saying, "Officer so-and-so is an awesome officer. He's so fucking great."
Yeah, that's
he
true.
ain't doing that because he can't. He's got his own code to live by.
If he does, he could put himself or his family at jeopardy. Because
which is stupid.
Even though he wasn't, I never asked him for information, and he never gave me any. It wasn't like that, but they might assume it.
And let's talk about that real quick. I hate to get on soapboxes, but I just love fighting against. So the whole purpose of the Officer Next Door Facebook page, in my opinion, serves not to. Here's a plug from. Hey, you're giving me the chance to talk about my page, right? Here's why I keep it. I want to talk about and fight against the false narratives that are just absolute bullshit. And we can all agree bad cops need to be punished. But at the same time, we can talk about all the things that people have wrong and don't understand. And they buy the mainstream media because all the mainstream, very rarely do you hear good stories. And like I just said, most people, good, bad, or otherwise, that have good interactions with officers, even the hardcore gang members and dope dealers aren't going to scream at the rooftops in defense of a cop unless they get killed. Then they might show up like what I just illustrated with Norm Smith and all that. But because that was a tragic deal and he was dead. So, but if an officer gets in trouble or gets a DWI, they're not going to come to their defense. They're not, and even if they do, no one's going to listen, right? Because the media makes money dividing our country, pointing us as the bad folks, because it gets clicks, it gets comments, it gets engagement. Everybody makes money, and it's all at the detriment of the cops because we're the fall guys. And somehow defunding us and removing our money is going to make us better. We're going to get more training, and we're going to be all better for it. And we're going to have more mental health services, and we're just going to be better. Anyway, there's a soapbox. But my point is, I keep my page to fight against that false narrative and raise money for funding, hopefully to help pay for mental health services and things like that. Because let's be real, you're a motor cop, you've been in traffic, you've seen and handled things that just haunt us. Again, 2022 qualifier. Just because we see bad things, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. But let's be real. We're humans. We see terrible things. Wouldn't you all agree if you invested money for us to go and have counseling and services and be able to talk about the horrific children we see killed in fatality accidents or killed by, murder or, a terrible ex-boyfriend or whatever, that we'd be better for it? I think everyone would agree with that. But more importantly, everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. So anyway, that's why I keep it. But that's the thing, is like, people just don't understand that, contrary to popular belief, there's a lot of great relationships that exist between police officers and even the, quote, hardest criminals in your neighborhood. People don't know that. I mean, it sounds to me, and that's what's cool, is you're in Louisiana, I was in Dallas, and I guarantee you agree, right? Like you've had great relationships with people that were definitely criminals, but yet you had mutual respect, and there was that certain level of camaraderie almost, because you knew, like, hey, we each have a job to do. You sell dope and I'm trying to catch you. And at the end of the day, the chips fall when they fall, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you'll never hear that on the news, is my point.
No, well, my last Sunday's episode, if anybody wants to go back and listen to it, it was, I think, a little 35, 40-minute episode. I called it the paper thin line.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why it's actually a serious one, which I'm not serious a whole lot. Everybody that listens to me knows that, but it's a serious one. And I talk about, right. And part of it is I do talk about how the news media is, they just like, if a cop messes up, they'll plaster your picture and have you guilty in the news before the end of the night.
Yep. My
issue is how often do you see or you hear when that cop gets acquitted or all the charges are dropped because he finds out, it was an ex-girlfriend that got pissed and they're lying on him, and all the charges and stuff were dropped against them, and come to find out wasn't real. How often do you see that on the news? You don't. The stain remains, I call it. The stain remains. And because here's the thing, people also don't get. That officer can't go up to the frickin' podium and go, here's my side of the story. We were going through a divorce. I haven't seen my child in 6 months, but somehow she claims I hit him 3 months ago. Doesn't compute. This is eventually going to get thrown out. I literally had a friend of mine go through that. And and let me also say this again. Holy crap. This horse is dead. I have zero respect for any officer that hits their wife. Common, trope that they love to say that, oh, cops, 40%, some idiot did a study somewhere in like 2014. Mike the Cop, I think, debunked it, and a few others that, we're just all a bunch of wife beaters and so on. Anyway, I had a friend of mine who was going through a divorce. Lo and behold, she called the cops, said that my friend, an officer, beat and tased. Thank God she said that he tased their child. Oh, yeah, because those things, you could download them. People don't know that. Bingo. You can download and see when it's been fired. Exactly. Thank God she went that ridiculous in her lie that she went to say that he tased him. So they went, and sure enough, they're like, okay, here's the date, here's the whatever. And by the way, we at the Dallas Police Department at that time did not take tasers home. So that was even more of a lie. But nonetheless, they went and they figured it all out and proved it was a big bag of bullshit. But also, I had two different girlfriends at one time, it was actually a fiance. I did not marry her. Getting real personal now. But I had two different girls say they were going to call the cops on me. Both times, one of which I wasn't even home. She said, I'm going to call 911 and say you hit me.
I said, I'm not even home. How, what are you talking? She was just mad at me, but they knew that I had so much to lose. They knew that I would be on the news. My face, I'd be humiliated. And they were so angry and emotional. They were willing to call the cops and lie on me because they knew it would cost me everything.
Yeah, it'll cost you your career, even though, because they're going to find you guilty. And especially with, like, sometimes you see a cop going through a divorce. And if they've been married to this woman for any amount of time, trust me, she knows enough about that job to know what to say and how to do it.
Exactly. And even these girls that I hadn't married yet knew that I would get screwed over if they even just made the allegation fully. And they didn't do it. And obviously, I think we know why, right? I can tell you, even I don't want to get too personal. I'm one of those people that if we get into an argument, I leave. If it gets heated and real, I just leave. Because I've actually been hitten by females more time. I've never hit a girl. I've had things thrown at me. I've been hit by a girl. Hitting. I'm using like really great grammar. I've never been hit by. I've been hit by a girl. Anyway, my point is,
I know where you're going with it.
You know where I'm getting at, and at the end of the day, it's just nonsense that they listen. Allegations are allegations. Everybody deserves their time in court, and everybody deserves a full investigation. And if they're acquitted, but you're absolutely right. One of the most things that drove me crazy, going back to troopers, there was a Texas trooper that got accused of a DWI stop and was accused of taking this woman behind a car dealership and violently raping her. And she was a black female. He was a white trooper, I believe. And she made this allegation, and the typical, what was his name? Merritt or whatever. I forget their names. The Al Sharptons of the world and the whatever.
Yeah.
Of course,
like the Ben Crump deal.
Yeah, Ben Crump, and it was Lee Merritt. He rushed to the thing, and they put it out on Twitter. And the guy that they call him Talcum X. What's that goofball's name that loves to just hate cops? Sean White. They always make fun of him because, anyway, he's just one of those Al Sharpton race baiting guys. The point being is this the horrible allegation, right? A trooper took this woman behind a car dealership and violently raped her in the back of his Tahoe. Just an awful allegation. And if true, holy crap, bury that guy. Give him the death penalty. I don't give a shit. Come to find out, they had a body camera on the whole time. They literally just were like, okay, whatever. They hit play. It was like a 2-hour-long video from the literal traffic stop. It was DWI. She definitely had an open container of vodka in the center console and whatever. But he was the nicest trooper I've ever. He was nicer to her than they've been to me. They talked about their kids going to college and just zero issues with the traffic stop, but it made the news and it was a big to-do. And it was just bonkers. And here's where I just get so angry is because, like you said, the retraction was like, oh, whoops. Lee Merritt talked to the attorney, and Sean White with his 1 billion followers just drumming up hate against cops. Although that one was absolutely unjustifiable and wrong, the damage was done. Yeah. The narrative was perpetuated. It's just another cop doing corrupt things. And so by virtue of that, they're all bad. And I'm just like, holy Hannah, like unbelievable. Because again, at the end of the day, they hit the freaking body camera footage and they're like, here you go. He was as professional and as nice as can be. Did nothing. Zero. I mean, they even had footage walking her into jail, like from traffic stop to jail, walking her in and wishing her the best. Like, all right, sorry,
they don't put that on the news. Say, look, we were totally wrong.
Well, they do, but it's a blip. Because again, what sells? The controversy, the bad news, the awful thing that officer allegedly did. And again, 2020 qualifier or 2022 qualifier. If that officer actually did that, I'd be the first to go out and I'll stand next to the protesters and say that guy needs to go to jail for a long, long time or forever or whatever. I'm cool with that. It doesn't matter. Wrong's wrong, right's right. I hate to beat that horse to death, but good grief. Like it just drives me up the wall because there's so many officers out there trying to do the right thing and do the right, make the right decisions. But people are just so quick to shit on them and try to and I don't understand why. Like, what good comes from it? You know, what truly is going to come from constantly causing animus towards police officers? Because ultimately what I've seen is, and we've seen this trend, is it creates this anti-police, sentiment, which ultimately results in people escalating situations out of anger that don't need to be, right? A simple traffic stop. A perfect example of what I talked about earlier with that Houston Texans situation. I wanted to tell the lady she had a taillight out, and I get called a racist because she was mad about what happened with another officer on the news in the different scenario. I'm like, well, shit, all I wanted to do is give you a warning.
Yeah, it's like, I was just trying to help you out there.
But you watched the news. You were affected by it. You felt that officer was racist because that's what the news told you, and that was the inference you made after the fact. And so by virtue of that, you got stopped because your taillight's out, and I'm a racist? All right. Well, that math doesn't compute with me, but whatever. I didn't call her outside of her name. I didn't, race was never brought up. And by the way, the end result of that, and funny thing is I wrote her every ticket I possibly could at that point. I wrote her for the taillight. I wrote her for no driver's license, or wrote her for whatever it was. It's probably 1 or 2 or 3 tickets or whatever. And here's the funny thing. She actually fought it, took it to court. And that's the one time in 12 and a half years in Dallas, I frickin' remembered that, because normally they'd take me to court and, it was frickin' 3 years ago. They're like, you remember this ticket? I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
So whatever. And, but I was like, yeah, I remember that one. And, of course, so the attorney goes and comes back and he goes, it's been pled. And I was like, of course it was. Cause she's like, shit, he did remember. I was like, well, yeah, you were an asshole to me. Unneeding, you didn't need to be. I would have happily let you go and let you know you needed to fix your taillight. Anyway, I don't mean to belabor the point, but that's why I keep my page. And I just like to fight against these nonsensical false narratives. And if I can raise money, for officers and good causes and stuff like that, that's the only 2 reasons I really keep this page. Because quite honestly, it takes time and stress in my life that I otherwise could do other things. But I just believe in the cause. And I think officers like you and other officers that are out there doing the good work, they deserve to be supported. And it just gets old. It gets old seeing the nonsense.
Well, I try. I got some of my friends who they say something. I was like, look, y'all don't realize it's just more than me coming in here and pushing a button and recording stuff. Just trying to keep up with social media. I got a website now, all the stuff like that. It's almost like having 2 full-time jobs.
It is, isn't it funny? And I fully understand this is a hobby or whatever you want to call it, but it is time consuming. And it's weird. I have this odd sense of a feeling of obligation to keep posting. That's super stupid. That's my own problem.
No, like I said, I'm not a professional. I don't hunt or fish no more. This is my vent. When I'm angry about something, whatever, I'll get on and vent about that too. But it's like, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I'm coming up on 3 years before long. I'll be doing a podcast, and we started doing a Wednesday thing farther on, but I always put something audio out on Sundays. If I don't have a guest, I'll try to talk about something or do a story. So,
sure.
And sometimes I'm like, what do I'm going to talk about or something? Because sometimes my mind's not quite where it needs to be or whatever. And but if I don't put something out on a Sunday or a Monday, which don't happen too often, I feel bad because I'm like, no, because I mean, trust me, I'm not huge like some of these other guys are, but I do have quite a few people that listen to me on a regular basis. And it's like, so I feel bad because I'm like, okay, these people are going to be wondering, well, why didn't he put anything? I'm like,
yeah, it's a weird thing.
And it's not like it's my job where I'm getting like, I got some Patreons that help me pay for my overhead and stuff, but it's not like I can't quit my job and do this full time at all. So.
Man, you're doing better than me. I don't have any Patreons. I actually, funny thing, I got approved for subscriptions or subscribers or whatever on Facebook. And I was like, they're like, hey, you can offer subscribers that can pay and then they get special content. I was like, so I hit the button. I'm like, okay. And I've been in quote, air quotes, review. They've been reviewing my account for like months.
That's because they realized you were cop related.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's a police officer that says things we don't like. Yeah, we don't want him to make money. And here's the thing. I'm not here to make money per se. It would be nice to be compensated for the time and effort I put into the content that I make and the shitty memes that I make and the bad opinions I give. But at the end of the day, if I'm selling challenge coins right now. I'm literally just trying to raise money to give to a charity that I care about. And if I keep, $100 for my trouble and donate $500 to the cause, cool. I'm not, this ain't going to be my living, or at least I hope it never has to be my living, because I'm not going to ever put my money or my eggs in all the basket of social media, because they can turn that spigot off anytime they want.
They can demonetize you in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And I don't want to go down that, it is what it is. But, at the end of the day, it's just, it's funny. And I keep hearing that you have a follower down under. And I actually just was recently engaged. I posted something just before this about diesel prices. And a lady was commenting, she's from Australia. And I was like, man, I thought I lost all you Australian followers, because during COVID, I posted something. They were down there, like the officers down in Australia were like, rounding up people that were going against lockdowns and arresting them. And all I posted was I could not be a cop in Australia because I would not be willing to go out and arrest people for breaking their lockdown. It's just my personal opinion, take it or leave it.
I made a comment on Twitter. It's like, if I had to do that, or I'd have to walk away. I can't,
Yep.
I'm not going to. Let's say, like, if they come, I'm not going to take people's guns away from them. I didn't take this job to start violating people's constitutional rights.
Amen. Yeah, exactly. And that's essentially what I meant. And all I said, thankfully, I chose my words smartly that time. I'm human. I make mistakes. But I said, I couldn't be a cop in Australia. I would not be willing to enforce that mandate, or whatever you want to call it. And oh man, I caught shit. Apparently they screenshotted that and sent it all around, and basically the Australians took it as I was shitting on Australian cops in general. And I was like, no, you're missing the nuance of the matter. I just couldn't do that. Y'all doing it, that's fine. I'm just saying I couldn't. I didn't say y'all are shit, y'all should quit. I didn't go further where other people were like, y'all need to turn in your badge. There were other people that were saying that, and whatever. I didn't say that. I'm not saying I didn't think it, but the point is, I responded to that Australian follower and I said, hey, thought I lost all y'all. Appreciate you. I didn't know you're still here. And anyway, she goes, I'm gonna go ahead. And I even referenced the whole what I said, and she goes, nope. I'm here. I like what you ever said. Anyway, I just find it funny. It's kind of, and that's the cool thing about these Facebook pages. Like, did you ever think you starting this goofy podcast and just having fun with it, you would end up having some sort of connection to someone in frickin' Australia?
No, actually, I had like a Ask the Iceman thing, and it took us a little, we finagled the times because, it's way different times. But I had her Skype in, and she actually did an audio episode where she asked me questions and stuff. So we've actually on Skype talking and stuff like that. So it was really neat. She's not in law enforcement at all, but she comes on the lives and stuff like that. I recently picked up some UK people, United Kingdom people. Y'all can email me. I don't know who y'all are, and I have Luva. I'm pretty sure that's you still down in Belgium down there listening. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's just getting to email people on the other side of the world where stuff's so different. My Canadian people.
Yeah,
actually,
I got plenty of them.
I got a lot of Illinois people. I'm surprised how many people I have. That's one of my bigger states I have, and I dog the shit out of that state.
Oh, I know. Me too.
And it's like they listen, and like I said, up in Washington, I got quite a few up in Washington, which in California. I mean, it's surprised. I don't know if it's because they just like listening to the hick or what, but
well, as anyone that's followed me, they know I lived in San Diego, California for the 2 years prior to moving to free country, Kentucky. And by the way, we're full in Kentucky, so just go to Tennessee, Florida, Texas. Yeah, we're full. But I love you, but we're full. So
Georgia seems to like the blue color. Go with it.
I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, no, I lived in California, and quite, again, not everybody is of that persuasion. It gets a bad rap. There's a lot of great people in California, but they mostly suck. That's why we left. The culture in California, I mean, just it was terrible, man. Everything was about Paul. And to be on full disclosure, San Diego is a great city. California is a shitty state, in my opinion, and I can say that because I lived there. And at the end of the day, what I hated about California, and again, I didn't get it a good shake, or I was there at a bad time. We moved there literally of February of 2020, March 2020. The world shut down.
Walked in a shit storm.
Right. And yeah, the worst way to go through COVID was in California. I mean, I got the looks I would get for the crime of walking my dogs without a mask on outside. Like, you would think that I was killing people or just something awful. Like, I'm just like, holy shit, I'm not within 30 feet of anybody. Like, it said 6 feet, not 60.
You're breathing the air without a mask.
Yeah, it was wild, man.
Put your
Anyway,
face diaper on. That don't work.
Yeah. But hey, there are a lot of good people in California, and some of them are, quote, trapped there and everything. But my biggest knock on California, and I always have heard, I've got the trolls to come back and say that this is how they feel in red states, but I have never, ever, like, I didn't tell anyone I was a former cop because I started to. I was always just an open book like I always am. Here's me. Here's what I'm all about.
You're probably proud of. So,
well, yeah, whatever. I don't much care. It's just who I am. I don't like lying. I don't like keeping I don't like having to I don't want to tell people that because it's just I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm a very open book. Just the truth is what it is. I used to be a cop. If you have problems with it, ask me questions. Like we talked about earlier. I love debate. I love, but they would judge you and they would literally not be your friend. They would stop. They would just they would not befriend you. And we saw it. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was multiple times that it was proven. And my wife was super apolitical. She was not a political. She didn't really give two shits about who was a president, or she had no clue. She's like, quit telling me I like my little bubble. I just want to live in my little bubble and quit telling me all the bad shit that's going on, blah, blah, blah. So she would yell at me because obviously being a former officer and just pay attention to things, I would be like, oh, this is going on. She's like, I don't want to know. Stop. So I was like, all right, my bad. Anyway, so we moved to California, but that's all people would talk about. And even her, she was like, why does everyone bring this up? Like, it didn't matter where. We could literally meet a couple that we, met from mutual friends or whatever, invite them over and have a dinner or whatever. And that would literally mostly veiled one way or another be what they want to talk about. It was basically them trying to find out if you're on the same team or not. And if you weren't, let me tell you, they would not call you back or talk to you ever again.
I guess because the area I live in, I got 3 18-foot flagpoles in my front yard. And, one's got a Let's Go Brandon flag. One says Don't Tread on Me. And, of course, the middle one. But I have the Black American flag up. But, it's nothing. I mean, and I see stuff on the news, which is strange because I guess people in some of the big cities don't realize. They're like, these people are like, man, somebody stole my Trump flag or they did this and that. I'm like, around here, if you drive around and somebody don't have a Trump flag, you figure something's wrong with them. I mean, it's really, put it this way. I've said it before about when you come into the parish, at the parish line, there's big billboards, like the big interstate billboards. And it's a billboard. It says welcome to such and such parish. We love our children, our schools, and our church. It says we love our children, school, and churches, and our Second Amendment. Enjoy your stay. And that was put up from the sheriff's office.
Okay,
so
whatever.
That's just the type of where So when I see stuff on the news from California, New York, and Chicago, and these crazy I pull people over, and they're like, well, here's my carry permit for my gun. I'm like, okay, and they're like, I just hand it back to them. I'm like, where's it at? They're like, well, it's right here. I'm like, well, just leave it there, because Louisiana, we're an open carry state, and in Louisiana, your car is considered an extension of your home. So you
Same
can put,
Texas.
Yeah, so you can put a gun. You don't have to have a permit or nothing. You can put a gun anywhere you want in your car in Louisiana, as long as you can legally own a gun. So I just assume every car I go up to has a gun, and so I'm just like, all right, don't touch yours, and I won't touch mine. How's that? And they're like,
fair enough.
They're like, okay, it's like, I guess because I see some of this stuff on TV. Some of these, I don't watch them very often because it's like, but like when they had live PD and like stuff like that on, it was like I see some of them city cops like they'll holler gun, and next thing you know they pulling their guns out and putting their. I'm like, Jesus, they couldn't work out here with us because they'd be pulling their guns on everybody.
Yeah,
I was like, my God, it's they just saw the gun and they freaked out. I'm like, okay, it's like y'all are.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, I hear you. I mean, man, and that's just a function, I think, of where you work and what you're used to and how level-headed you are. And here we are again, like not everybody's level-headed, right? There's good cops, bad cops, silly cops, scared cops, stupid cops. There's all kinds of cops. But yeah, it's funny. But you know, what's funny, even like just going back to like San Diego, what's crazy is you go east 20 miles of San Diego into like cities like Alpine and different, and you'll drive through neighborhoods back in the day and there'd be tons of Trump flags and a lot of conservative folks and whatnot. And anyway, you know, it's interesting, but you know, politics aside, it's like, can't we just like base friendships on like a mutual agreement that like you're fun to be around and you hold a good conversation, and whether we agree politically or not, we can still be friends. And then, so anyway, that's what I was getting at is I've exposed, or I've voiced my displeasure for that fact that being true in California. And of course, here comes the social media troll saying, well, that's how it is in Texas and Florida if you're a liberal. And I'm like, well, but okay, and if that's true, I'm sorry, but I'm speaking, at least for me personally, I've never said, oh, you voted for Obama, therefore we can't be friends. I've never said that. No. I've never judged a friendship based on political ideology. And so I can't speak for all Texans or all Floridans or all red state people or whatever the hell. But that's the point that pisses me off, is it's like, okay, all I'm saying is that I find it ridiculous that I had to hide the fact that I was a cop because I would be judged and put into a certain box that I'm all these, you know, ists. I'm a racist. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a whatever, all because of that. And so I had to hide my true past in California just in hopes of having friends.
Yeah,
how insane is that?
That's crazy.
You know, and here's the thing.
I got friends I work with that are freaking blue dog Democrats, and we'll hang out with each other. We just don't talk about politics. Cool.
That's fine. And see, that's the thing is like, and so if there are people that act that way in the inverse, I disagree with that too. I find that ignorant. I find that foolish. And so, you know, I guess that's my whole point is it's like, well, if you've experienced that in Texas or Florida, again, wherever, then I apologize for that, but I'm not going to apologize because I'm not the one doing it. My point being is if you want to be my friend and I put stock in who you are as a person, do you have integrity? Are you someone I want to be associated with? Or more nowadays, I'm much more intentional about who I hang out with. Are you trying to better yourself? Are you a good person that's going to add to my life, not take from it? That's what I base it on, but that's just me. So anyway, I digress. I think Duke does too.
Yeah, I think we've been going for a while. I'm going to hopefully you'll come back on because we got a lot more to talk about. Yeah. It's just fun. But I appreciate you, everybody. Oh yeah, we're gonna definitely get you back on. Everybody, go like and follow the Officer Next Door Facebook page, and he puts out some funny stuff. Also, go like and subscribe on this podcast, and share it with your friends and your frenemies. And remember to smile because the Iceman could be behind you. And remember, we're not sheepdogs. Be a lion. And we'll till the next episode.